In my last video, I explained how I keep my knives straight during the grinding and finishing process. Today, I'll be explaining how I keep knives straight through the forging and heat treat process. I'll be starting with a 4-inch long and 1 1/8 inch diameter section of 52-100 steel, and I'll be forging it into an 8-inch chef's knife. The most important thing is to make sure that you have the right amount of heat in your steel depending on what you're doing to it. At the start of this, I'm forging the shape from scratch, so it needs to be at a high orange color. It's not quite welding heat, but just a bit below. This ensures that the steel is actually moving through the entirety of the thickness of the steel, not just mushrooming over on the outside. And as soon as I lose that heat, I go back into the fire. I don't forge below that heat until I've reduced the thickness of what the blade will be close to 1/4 of an inch. I also make sure that through the entire forging process, I hit evenly. So whatever I do to one side, I'm sure to do that same thing to the other side at the same heat. Now at the start of the billet, it was so thick I could do this in one heat. But as the blade gets thinner and thinner, I spend one heat on one side, then the second heat on the other. This is a big help in keeping things nice and straight as you move through the forging process. In fact, I think it's the most important part of not only keeping things straight, but keeping it centered, as this is an integral and you want it in the center mass of the bolster at the end. Now these knives are forged to thickness, not profile. So once I get the spine down to a heavy 1/8 of an inch at the base, distally tapered, I do some light straightening at very low heat. If you get the steel even to cherry red, a small tap could result in a huge overcorrection. So low heat is super important at this stage. The last bit of hitting that I have to do is my maker's mark. I made this little jig to hold my maker's mark and keep it in the same spot every time. I tried to simply hold this with tongs at first, and it was a massive pain. It's almost impossible to hit the same spot perfectly twice in a row. And once the knives are marked, of course that made things a little wonky, but again, light hits at low heat takes care of everything. Now I can move on to normalizing. And there's not a lot that you can do to keep it from warping during this process, but I don't worry about that because I have a little trick. Immediately after the quench, I clamp the blade in between two thick plates of aluminum, and this keeps it from warping as it cools down. But you need to get the blade in before it reaches 400 degrees Fahrenheit, as the transformation to martensite will be too far along to fix any warps, and you might crack your knife. After that, it's a couple rounds in the temper oven, and I've got some nice straight blades that are ready for grinding and handles. Let me know in the comments what other tips might be helpful. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.